CTTB. Music Podcast.
Hello! So, yes, we're back. Podcast 2. Unlike the first podcast of this year, we're actually talking about albums that have come out this year.
Excellent, amazing.
So, 5 albums this time around. Casey, How to Disappear, Unknown T, Blood Diamond, Hermosa, Marika Hackman, Big Sigh, and The Last Dinner Party, Prelude to Ecstasy. So we start with Casey, How to Disappear, Welsh rock band from South Wales, formed in 2014, released 2 albums, and then disbanded in 2019, and then reformed again 2022. Oh my God. Technical issues already.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You should leave that in.
Yeah, that's... the iPhone decided to try and throw itself to its own death, though.
Rather than listen to us, your iPhone just tried to throw itself off a ledge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Well, maybe that's the iPhone. Maybe the iPhone is passing judgment over how it feels about Casey How to Disappear.
So, iPhone, how do you feel about Casey How to Disappear?
It seemed to get annoyed when I said it was their 3rd album, but, it is their 3rd album. Mm-hmm. So, Casey, who I hadn't heard of before, who I was not aware of before. Actually, I will say this several times during this podcast, wasn't aware of them before.
Oh, so how did I feel about them? Okay. This was an album. No, seriously. So this is, I don't want you, where would you pigeon this? I don't want to pigeon anyone, but where would you put this?
They've been described, apparently, I read the Wikipedia thing, so they've been described as post-hardcore.
Yeah, I saw that.
Shoegaze, more of later in the podcast. Post-metal.
Definitely shoegaze.
And various other posts.
There's a lot of post in this.
Yeah.
So much post that the Royal Mail should be in trouble again. I would say that this is an album. No, I can do better than that. I would say that this is definitely an album that has a particular sound that runs through it. No, I've got to really try harder. I would say that this is an album that's pretty solid.
Britain, this is a solid album.
Yeah, it's a solid album. It's very one note, and I don't mean that.
Yes, it is. You
know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
For production wise, it's very one note. There is a section in the middle, and I know I've not even talked about the beginning, but I'm just going to skip to the middle. There is a section in the middle of the album where, in terms of musical challenge, it does change, and you do get a bit of the hardcore grrr.
Yes.
And it does go more metal. And I think when it does go more metal, it's stronger, because the rest of the time...
I have pretty much said that, yes.
The rest of the time, it just sort of goes along. It goes along, and it's not inoffensive. I quite like some of it. I mean, I'm going to say I liked a couple of tracks in a moment, as I always do. But it sort of goes along, but it doesn't really hit its stride until it keeps going. And until it gets louder and more aggressive, because the rest of the time it's just sort of a one note, and that's not a bad thing. Sort of album.
No,
oh my God, I can't. That's possibly the worst description I've ever given of an album. Now I've got.
But I agree. On that exact point, I've said some good screaming on Sanctimonious, Punctured Wounds of Heaven, and Bite Through My Tongue.
Yes,
latter of which is possibly my favourite track.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Oh God.
I went. In fact, oddly, the tracks with the screaming seem to hit the mark better than ones that don't, which is something I don't say very often.
So yes. So I said it hits stride middle. Those that I'm survived by, which has that little excellently titled St. Peter instrumental at the end of it, and then Puncture Wins to Heaven, which I think are the second and third tracks of the album to feature the growl. And even they introduce the growl, it goes heavy, and then they introduce possibly one of the better, slower tracks as well with Blush, which comes not that long after that as well. So you've got the contrast. But the rest of the time, I'm sort of for Katie, maybe. But the rest of the time,
I love the guitar riff at the start. That guitar riff.
So that's one of the tracks from the earlier half that really struck out to me. But
Well, yeah, no, that you pretty much summed it up. I think it is that kind of thing where you kind of go. I think if you were trying to kind of pitch it to people who were going like me, never heard of KC.
I've never heard of KC.
Who the fuck are they? What they sound like?
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're thinking Frightened Rabbit, Idlewild, Bit of Funeral for a Friend, that kind of pot.
Yes.
Kind of thing. And as you say, it is just it's solid. It's perfectly fine. And as you say, bizarrely, we've agreed. Ironically, where it goes more kind of rocky, it actually works much better than the things that are slightly more kind of subdued. Although I do like the kind of the lyrical darkness of "I Was Happy When You Died."
Yes, yes.
So kudos for that. It's like I mean, there are a couple of dark songs on the podcast, but that particular one, yeah. On balance, I was quite happy when you died. Yeah, it's
And on balance, I was quite happy when this album didn't.
Yeah. So I think we both agree that it's some good, but mostly filler. But okay filler.
But okay.
Yeah. We move on to Unknown T, Blood Diamond. Unknown T is Daniel Ritchie Lenner. Has made his name over the last 5 years as an important voice in the UK drill scene. Although, clearly, shockingly, I was not previously aware of his work. Although I was aware of at least two of his collaborators in this album, so I was aware of Loyal Kana. It was a fascinating character just generally. It's obviously been nominated for Mercury Prize, I think, twice. And also runs a cooking school.
Nice.
No, just genuinely runs a cooking school. And I was aware of Digger D, who apparently met in prison because my daughter has listened to Mr. D.
I did wonder where your daughter would come into this.
Yes. Yes, my daughter has listened to Mr. D on sometimes.
Nice. Okay.
So it's his first album after two previous mixtape albums.
Right.
We're back to mixtape albums again. We're familiar with that.
Sometimes it works.
Yeah. And actually, I think it works well. This is a unusually short album from a UK rapper. So it's only 45 minutes. I have to say, I like the short and snappy approach to the tracks. It's a more expansive sound than just drill, which is what is with the things. So it's
agree.
Literally, it starts off with a kind of orchestra. Again, there's another album in the podcast that starts off with this way.
With strings.
Starts off with an orchestral movement on 2023. I saw an interview with him online when he was talking about the kind of backstory of the album and saying that this record was trying to capture his life, his journey, bit X Factor, but and his growth as an artist over the last few years, I think. And also, interesting, he said his favourite track on the album was Time, which I tend to agree with, which starts there. What I quite like about this is it's commercial. It does cover his journey, if you listen to the lyrics. In fact, on Time, there's a really great line about industry plants, which again, come to more later on podcast. And I think that the album starts off really, really strong with Welcome to My Strip, Hocus Pocus with Loyal Kana, and especially Adolescence with the song with Digger D, which I think is a really standout cut on the record. But what I like is, again, the album doesn't fall away. It starts strong, but actually, unlike a lot of recent albums in this genre, where I've had a strong desire to turn off the record, with this, I was quite happy to basically continue. And I think that's partly because it's a combination of some really strongly structured bars, some surprisingly good hooks, and it's a very clear rap sound as well. So it's not going to mumble to me. You get to hear what he's saying, paired with an inventive but not overbearing musical accompaniment, which complements as opposed to fighting the raps, which I think there's several things we've reviewed in the last couple of years where almost there's too much going on in the musical side of things that it's just overpowering everything else. In the latter half of the album, I've mentioned a few things at the start. There's obviously I suppose because of Stormzy, kind of compulsory gospel tinged kind of thing. So Rain, but really good. And I really like the final track as well, Till We Meet Again, which I also think is one of the strongest songs on the record.
Yeah.
So I was actually fairly impressed by Unknown T, actually.
For me, I agree everything you said. For me, it was drill, and my God, middle-aged man saying drill, Jesus, it was drill, but it was drill with an old school bounce in part as well. I think that's what I liked about it. It had it was modern, yes, it was very much British hip hop as it is now, but it occasionally sort of went into that sort of West Coast bounce along sort of vibe as well. And I think actually on the tracks like Time and Adolescence, that's where you heard it. And again, what I also liked about this, which was different, was yes, you had the journey from start to finish, but that was kind of at the beginning and a little bit towards the end. But actually, in the middle, you had other stuff as well, which was also engaging. I think we've reviewed a lot of albums, particularly by British rap artists, the last couple of years, where it is very much about the journey and it's very personal, and it usually corners around life on the streets. Justice, family, love, bad romance. Yes, all of that was here. All of that was here. But in a way that wasn't, I was about to say a way that wasn't Drake, but you know what I mean? Yeah. It was a way that wasn't just sort of set out as an endurance or as something that the artist had to go through to get to the point where they get to at the end of the album. And that is not to denigrate any of the great rap albums we have listened to in the last couple of years, of which we've liked. And I'm thinking of Giggs and Dave and all those others. But this was really good. Yeah. Was tales of life. Like you see Rain and Right Hand, and
Right Hand's quite fun.
Yeah, and then you had tunes like Avengers Assemble, which sounded like Ragaton on speed. You know?
Yes,
yeah, it just throws in that. You know, it's brilliant. Yeah, liked it.
Okay, moving on. Debut album from US-German band made of Caitlin Ziegler and Robert Goldbach, Hermosa. And obviously, the album's called Hermosa.
The album track's called Hermosa too.
Indeed. They produced 90s shoegaze-inspired indie rock.
So I from this album, I did like the track Hermosa from the album Hermosa by the band Hermosa.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This is classic indie rock, isn't it? I mean, this is, you know, as...
Hello, the 90s.
I know, I was about to say, as the name suggests, plants its flag somewhere between the now and the old indie scene of the 90s. I mean, it's got all those bands in there somewhere. It's, you know, particularly tracks like Ride It Out and Paper Heart. I could be listening to a 90s band, to be honest, and actually quite enjoying it as well.
Yes.
It's done well. But what I also liked about the album is, again, not one note, like another album we reviewed earlier. You've got tracks like Two and Messy, which Messy as in untidy, not the
footballer.
Not the footballer. Both tracks demonstrating a lighter vocal and a more gentler sound. It sort of drops in the album there. But then you have something like Anti-Bucket List, which is very raw and very sort of shouty and very sort of angry indie.
Yeah, the loudness of that.
The loudness of punk indie from the 90s.
Yes.
But still very much in the 90s.
And also has the Anti-Bucket List.
Yeah.
The delivery of the lyrics. Thinking Macarena?
Yes. Yeah, it's got anger there. Of its time as well. Yeah. References. So I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I have to say, it literally does what it says in the tin. Yeah. And someone that's very rarely met a distorted guitar I didn't like.
Yes.
You know, I was thinking, okay, this can only disappoint me from that kind of thing. But thankfully, as I said, it's good. I mean, immediately you got the open track Hermosa, as I said, which is a very kind of My Bloody Valentine distorted guitar. Oh, hello. Distorted guitar sound. I love Paper Heart. Really catchy tune. I love the lyric. You took my paper heart and fed it through the shredder. I think that really, really clever.
Yeah.
Also love the kind of, it has a really good non-guitar solo in it as well. It gets the point where you think it should be the guitar solo, and then the kind of drums and guitars just come in about 2/3 in, and you're thinking, is it going to get a guitar solo? It doesn't, but it works really well. Love the riff on Ride It Out. as you say, too, really like the kind of vocals on the chorus there, which are too much. And then there's the surprise of the bit of sax coming in.
Yeah.
Which is like, great. This is an interesting album because I should really to say that I became aware of this record because someone I follow and interact with on Threads, a gentleman called Dave Escoffi, who apparently is also a singer-songwriter, plugged the album because Caitlin's his wife. And he's someone that also does the kind of 10 random listens thing.
I've been meaning to ask you that.
Yeah. So
do you want to have that conversation now or later?
Yeah. So I thought, let's review. So when I was coming to do review albums, let's review that. And
everyone follow I Overload on Threads.
Thankfully for Dave and Kellen, we both liked the album. I didn't really at the time. I thought it's shoegaze. I went, okay, fine, yeah. No. Let's give it a try. It's great, yeah. But yeah, I actually thought this was genuinely an enjoyable record. Moving on, Marika Hackman, the only person, Big Sigh, the only person on the podcast we've reviewed before.
I thought we had.
Yes. We reviewed her. This is the 5th album. We reviewed her 2nd album.
Did we?
Back on podcast 6, 2017, which was I'm Not Your Man. British artist, obviously. Then this starts very atmospheric and piano based, and it's quite a subdued album musically. I think overall, whilst there is bits that are not, but lyrically it's slightly more anxiety and stress ridden, but also quite cathartic. So you got songs like "Hanging," which are like a song about past relationships where she's felt suffocated and trapped, and a song that's just got so many good lines in it. It's unbelievable. So it's like, I wouldn't like to hold my breath to be pushed underwater when I'm coming up for air. I'm thinking, I'm like, because every time I feel that. Yes, because every time I talk with suffocate, remember when you said I'm a disease and you'd like to kill me in your dreams again? And then even better, and my heart won't grow with your fingers down my throat. Yeah.
Jeez.
To be fair, Hackman said herself that she thinks that's one of the best songs she's ever written, that particular song. But there's a similar theme going through tracks like Blood, Please Don't Be So Kind, which are also in a similar vein. Although I love, again, back to saxophone on the last album, I love the horns that are on Please Don't Be So Kind. Really works pretty well. Really love the piano instrumental that's in the middle of the album, Lonely House, which sounds very much Kate Bushy. But there are a couple of moments that are slightly more up-tempo. I think particularly Caffeine earlier on the album, which is, again, quite dark, but quite fun. And also, lyrically wise on Vitamins, as a lawyer might describe herself as a sack of shit and oxygen, which I think is, again, summing up the upbeat tone of the record. I think this is an album I haven't listened to enough, but it's one of those records that I think is probably one of those records that if you give it time, it's one of those things that you kind of go, really good. As it is, it's still quite interesting, but yeah. But
I agree. I think I didn't give this enough time, and I will. It's a mixture of very mature. I talk about mature pop music on this podcast sometimes. This is very mature pop music, like it's some sort of cheese you would need to get to. This is very mature.
Camembert.
It's proper mature pop music, but it's very clever and it's got great clever lyrics. I really like No Caffeine as an opener.
Yeah,
it's probably one of the more melodic songs on the album as well. That said, the album does remain pretty quiet until you get to the Hanging.
Yeah.
And then the final third of the album kicks in, which I really enjoyed, actually. I feel there's a sort of a closure to it all. Lyrically,
I think the second half.
Yeah, it's stronger, isn't it?
Stronger.
Yeah, it's definitely stronger. So that final third, you get the gentle piano of the Lonely House, which is an instrumental. You get the strained synthetic. Is it synthetic or twisted vocal of Vitamins?
Yeah,
it's like slightly distorted. It's put through something, definitely, which I also liked. And then you get the really horrible song Slime, which is great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. I agree. It's an album that deserves to marinate and be listened to again and again.
So we move on to the final album. Actually, and the final album is being set up by the fact that obviously BBC Sounds of 24 came out. Their top 5 were 5 Elmeen, apparently it's a song. Number 4 was Tyler. Number 3, DJ Peggy Goo. Number 2, Olivia Dean, who I actually had heard of. And number 1 were The Last Dinner Party. So, that album was meant to come out at the end of March, off the back of them winning this prize. Whoever the record company are, decided to bump it up a bit. So it actually came out a week ago. So, Last Dinner Party, Prelude to Ecstasy, worthy of the hype or not, Pete?
This is interesting because I know nothing about record company shenanigans. Look, okay. I've read into this. Is actually a band I actually did read into.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to say. And I actually really like a classic sort of indie act. But this is a very well-produced indie act. You've got James Ford involved here. James Ford's a name that keeps cropping up on this podcast.
Obviously, he's producing one of the upcoming albums of the year.
He might be producing one of the upcoming albums of the year. I can tell you that now. But prior to the Pet Shop Boys, he has done Depeche Mode and he has done Blur. It's got clear influences from the art rock scene. It has got, I think the obvious one is Florence the Machine.
Yeah, apparently it's supported late last year.
Yeah, and when you listen to tracks like that, Burn Alive, very strong there. But you also get Bowie in there. Bowie's in there. I can hear Bowie, and apparently they've said Bowie's an influence, so I can sort of pick that up. So I like that. I like Caesar on a TV screen. I liked Sinner because it was a bit of a 60s swing. There's also an ABBA thing going on there as well.
Everything's going on.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's got a lot going on, and I feel like this is one of those. But I said this to my wife Debs last night. I said I found this band and that I'm reviewing, and I feel like they are one of those bands that are going to do a stage at Glastonbury this year, and the stage is going to be oversubscribed. It's going to be
they did Glastonbury this year.
They did it last year. I saw they did it last year, but they're going to be on like the second stage this year or the first stage, but early in the afternoon. And it's going to be oversubscribed. So they're a hype band, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way because actually I quite like some of their stuff, but I can't help feel there's a bit of polish here that wouldn't be here normally. And I'm just picking this up from nothing that you've said or we've discussed, but I'm getting a feel from you that you're about to reveal something.
No, I'm not actually.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm going to reveal the fact that they literally got together at university.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
They got together at university, and actually, obviously,
That's a bit of polish, though, isn't that?
Well, no, but the thing, I think again, it's a bit like
and I like. Let me just say this very clearly. I actually really like this album.
It's a bit like Wet Leg a couple years ago.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. Wet Leg.
I know, but people are saying clearly industry plants.
No,
because they're
no, that's what I'm getting at.
And they're going. No, we've been playing live for like fucking 4 years. 4 years.
They put the graft in,
and
yeah, we
were signed because someone was online doing live gig and went, oh my God, we need to sign this people.
That's what I mean. They're bloody lucky.
Yeah,
they are the wet leg of 2024.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of hype about them, and I love a bit of hype. But I'm just a middle-aged man with a lot of cynicism these days.
Yeah,
so maybe I'm reading too much into it.
Yeah,
they are the wet leg. They are the James Ford produced band of the year, other than the other one. I'm all for it. I'm bought in. I think this is the next classic indie.
No, it is.
Of the UK.
Absolutely.
In that long line of acts that includes Wet Leg and whoever came before Wet Leg and stems all the way back to bloody Oasis via the Arctic Monkeys.
I think this album is absolutely glorious.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Glorious. For start, any band.
Oh, and Wolf Alice. Sorry, Wolf Alice.
Yeah. Any band.
Another band.
Any band that names their album after the instrumental track that opens the thing.
Which I also like.
Exactly, yeah. We're going to have a strange kind of like orchestral opening track.
Yeah.
And we're going to name the album after that track. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, how can you go wrong with the sound, with a band that sounds like a combination of, so you didn't say, so you said ABBA, but
ABBA.
For me,
ABBA.
No, for me, I was going Sparks.
Oh, yes. Very good.
What's in there?
All right. Yeah.
I'm Burn Live, Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah.
Bit of medieval babes in Gudger.
Yeah, you've lost me, Olga.
Lena Lovitch plays the all over the fucking shop.
Yeah.
It was interesting because the first thing I ever heard from this band was just before Christmas when I heard My Lady of Mercy. And it came on YouTube after watching several things. And I was going, oh, this is just interesting. And as soon as the kind of 70s rock guitars came in the chorus, I was going, oh my God, I love this band.
Yeah.
Yes, give me more. And it's just great. All members of the band write. There's not all just one kind of thing. And it's just a weird, wonderful thing.
Yeah.
It's just like,
I've actually written, look, in my notes here, my notes begin at last, !
Yes.
A wonderful return to the scene of a classic indie act.
Yeah. I mean, they're a band that are lifting from lots of other people. And
without doubt.
And
they demonstrate their influences on their sleeve.
But sound unique. And that's what you want from great artists. They've been going, we're going to pull in stuff of this, but it's still not
the cynicism,
like...
The cynicism has even got me after a couple of listens. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, you're wrong.
I am absolutely wrong. This is an album that I've been chewing over. This is the most difficult album of the podcast for me because I feel that I am on. If it's not this album, it's the next album. It's a classic. I mean, the next album by them.
Yes. No, but I think. But I think this is just really terrific album. The first listen, I was like, I don't know. The second listen, I was like, oh yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Sit back and go. Yes.
Yeah.
This is the Wet Leg album.
It is the Wet Leg. Yeah.
It is like,
I know.
This is the one where this album will be my top 5 at the end of the year. I can tell you now.
Exactly. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trained to hear these things now and think, oh, what?
However, what else might be in our top 5 from the end of the year? So
I think James Ford's next produced album might be.
I'm going to mention some of the albums that we may or may not be reviewing coming up. So coming out in February, new album by Declan McKenna, new album by Sonic Youth, new album by MGMT.
Oh,
still playing this week. Exactly.
Wow.
March, we have Yard Act, Jesus and Mary Chain, Gordon, who was obviously in Sonic Youth, Waxahachie, who we've reviewed before, Judas Priest, Sheryl Crow, Dandy Warhols,
yes,
Miss Musgraves, KM5. Then we get to April. Apparently, have Taylor Swift. She obviously announced whilst winning Grammys.
She's going to go far, that girl.
And Jane Weaver, who we've reviewed before, and some other band who apparently,
is the two of them.
There are 2 of them, and apparently it's called nonetheless. But and reviewed by the person you just mentioned. But
exactly.
But apparently that also comes out in April.
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward to that.
Yeah. So some stuff to look forward to.
Well, stay tuned, folks, because we'll try and podcast a bit more regularly these days.
Yeah. 402.
Yeah.
Actually, it's also going to be very weird because I'm almost certainly going to post this one in the next couple of days rather than take several weeks to do it. So it'll feel like we're like really kind of podcasting like every couple of weeks.
We're on fire again. It's excellent. Anyway, lovely to see you. Bye-bye.
Till then. You've been listening to the CTB Music Podcast. The CTTB Music Podcast is a Vineland production.